Welcome to the What Paramedics Want podcast series of Inside EMS, sponsored by Pulsera. Whether replacing radio reports, alerting specialty teams, or managing mass casualty incidents, Pulsera simplifies communication, one tool every day, regardless of the event. There are not many shopping days left till Christmas, but there is a show to go inside EMS. And I am your host, Chris Cebollero, excited to be with you during this holiday season. And with me is the man, the smiling man, if you're watching us on YouTube. And you should be watching us on YouTube. If you've never watched us on YouTube, give it a go, check it out. But here he is, without further ado, the one they call Kelly Grayson. Kelly Grayson. KG, what's going on?
Hey man, good to talk with you again. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was good, man. Texas EMS came and went. How'd you do?
Yeah, my talks were greeted with enthusiasm. I got some good feedback on it, and then I got a chance to do some duck hunting and some sandhill crane hunting with some good friends, and it was a great weekend. Had a blast.
Those sand cranes, what the heck is that?
Sandhill cranes, they're cranes. They're significantly larger than geese. Sandhill cranes weigh 12 pounds or so, and at the heaviest, and stand about 4.5 feet tall. And they call them the ribeyes of the skies because they taste so good. And man, duck hunting and crane hunting with a good hunting retriever champion retriever has given me the puppy fever again. I got to get a dog and get back to training dogs, man. I miss it so much.
Yeah, it's funny that there are a lot of these animals that you find in Texas. I remember when I first got to Texas, I was living in Arlington, Texas, working for Arlington EMS back in the old days before electricity. And I had a roommate at the time because you needed a roommate to survive, kind of our topic today, right? And yeah. I said to the guy that I was living with, the guy's got some funny looking dogs down the road. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, that house right there where we turn and blah, blah, blah. He's like, dude, those are goats. I'm like, what the heck does he got goats in the yard for? It's the city, man. Dude, those are goats.
What a city boy.
Yeah, I was like, some funny looking dogs. So what goes into finding a hunting dog?
Good bloodlines, first of all. Yeah, they need to come from proven champions. They have to have talent. You can teach them everything else, but no matter how good the trainer, if the dog doesn't have talent in the first place, you can't do it. And I have hunted with some world beater dogs and trained some world beater dogs, and I have also hunted with some absolute pieces of crap.
How long does it take to train a dog to do what you need them to do in the hunting world?
So what now?
How long does it take? Yeah, how long does that take?
Basic training takes about 3 months. And you can teach them to be steady to wing and shot and do multiple retrieves and be fairly obedient in 3 months. And it takes another 3 to 6 months to get them proficient in hand signals and blind retrieves. You ought to be able to take the dog out of the blind, not having seen the bird fall, and line it up and run it straight to the bird with a minimum of corrections. But that's what these were trained to do.
So when the dog is in the field or whatever the heck you call it, you tell them where you want to go with your hands? You send
Yes, you give them hand signals. Hopefully they mark the bird down and they see it fall. And a lot of dogs can mark. Not many dogs can mark and count. And I've had a few that could remember multiple falls and unerringly. But when they can't do that, you need to be able to do a blind retrieve. And if the bird lands, heart shot and glides 100, 200, 300 yards away and plops down, then you need to be able to send your dog for it and put them right on it. And a good retriever can do that.
So how do you train a dog? I mean, you probably do that up close, right? So you train them with your hands like just a few feet away or something?
Believe it or not, most of the training, most of the rote memorization and skills that these dogs learn are on ground as flat as a putting green with grass minimal amount of high, and it's all drills, and you teach it's memorized and drilled commands and actions. And then you refine that in the field. You put them in genuine hunting situations and do that. But you teach the dog what they need to do with relatively little change in terrain and distractions, and then you refine that in the conditions they're going to be hunting in. And these dogs did well.
Yeah, I know this is not what we're supposed to be talking about, but this is interesting to me. Last
It
question,
is
I promise. How much does the bloodline help for what's inbred in them or what they already would know?
huge amount,
Yeah.
huge amount. That I mean, you can get lucky and find a backyard bred puppy with no significant ancestry that can be a world beater. There were a couple of famous field trial labs like that, but most of them are going to come from proven sires and grandsires and dams. And you're hedging your bets. Any choice of picking a puppy is a crapshoot, but using good bloodlines, choosing from good bloodlines tilts the odds in your favor.
And you used to do, how much did you charge to train a dog?
It depended. I charged, this was back in the late 80s, early 90s. I charged $350 a month to train, plus all the trial expenses and travel and birds and stuff like that. It could get expensive.
Yeah,
Now
it sounds like it
a
would be.
reputable trainer will charge at least twice that, and quite a few of them charge well over that.
Interesting. Yeah. All right, let's do this thing. Go ahead and set this topic up for us. Everybody knows from the show notes where we're going anyway. We haven't done anything yet, but you
Yeah.
know where it's going to end up. So go ahead and set it up for us.
We talk so often about how EMS doesn't pay, and people leave the profession for greener pastures quite frequently because they can't deal with needing multiple jobs to pay the monthly bills. And I've always said that maybe EMS doesn't pay well in your area, but it does pay well. You just have to be willing to vote with your feet. And in Albany, Georgia, the Dougherty County Commission finally realized that because they were bleeding employees who were going to other services with a lower number of calls and more pay. And they finally realized, and credit to the county commissioners for understanding this, if you want quality pay, you got to pay for it. And the Dougherty County Commission authorized pay raises and bonuses, retention bonuses to keep their people there. And hopefully it will bring back some of the people that have fled to formerly greener pastures.
Yeah, when we think about this too, what's interesting in this article, and this article is on EMS One, and we go back to December 5th, 2024 is when this article came out. One of the things that's interesting to me is that it's when EMS agencies get into these positions, and especially like even during COVID, Kelly, as they were trying to keep people, this money is mysteriously coming from somewhere to pay these paramedics more, where everybody is talking about. Now, I've been in this position and I know what it's like of trying to pay the paramedics what they deserve and where the money was coming from. But it's funny how when people are getting ready to leave or when people are not coming to work, that this money automatically materializes from some coffer that they're able to take and keep the people. Why don't we just pay them what they deserve? And you're going to be on the hook for it anyway. Now, the commissioners, they voted to boost starting pay from $20.77, which is horrible, to $24.50.
Which is
And
less
then,
hard.
I'm working in a company now. We don't start pay anything less than $35 an hour, but it really does depend on the volume and where this money is coming in, right? So when you now start to think about an increase of $4 an hour, and then 4 supervisors, 1 training officer received an extra $2.50 an hour, they're trying, right?
Yeah, they're trying. I think they're figuring out that EMS has a cost, and as a profession, we have really sucked at promoting ourselves and the necessity of what it is that we do. You see people say, well, they transported me half a mile to the hospital. My bill was over $1,000. And they did hardly nothing to me, and they do not understand the cost of readiness. You're not paying for the ride to the hospital. You're paying for the potential or the capability to provide life-saving service on a moment's notice, and that is not cheap. Many county agencies do not understand this and do not understand that quality EMS is costly, to the point where many, they can't keep the doors open. There's a story on EMS One about an Alabama County ambulance service, Pickens County ambulance, just shut the doors because they could not keep up with the funding. And now that they're without an ambulance, now they're looking, oh my gosh, the horse is out. Let's go ahead and close this barn door and see if we can come up with a solution that we should have come up with long before. They're trying to set up a county ambulance service now and do what they should have done before. But the folks in Albany, Georgia, and Dougherty County have figured that out. It's, I've worked most of my career for private ambulance services, private EMS agencies. And the revenue pool that we drink from is very, very shallow. It is Medicare and Medicaid and private insurance reimbursement. And quite often that is below the cost of providing the care. Yet the good companies always seem to find a way to diversify their funding streams and find new revenue sources to pay their people. The agencies that don't, you have to wonder if it's don't or just won't. And the ones that won't find out that you can't keep good people, and you wind up being the starter, the training agency for the big place in the next county or the next town that is willing to pay your people. And you continue that cycle throughout until you learn the lesson that if you want to keep good people, you have to pay them. And I think that's what the county commissioners in Dougherty County finally figured out, and would that many other places figure out the same thing, that good EMTs are going to vote with their feet, and they're going to go where the pay is. If you want to keep them, you got to pay them.
So what we need to think about is when we talk about an increase of $20, where were we at? We started at 2077.
2077, and now
they went to 2450. And you would think that that's not a lot of an increase, but for the organization, this is a $277,743 for the remaining of the current fiscal year, which runs through June 30th. Now, there was a thought of just increasing the pay to $24 an hour instead of $24.50. That would have only come out to $259,100. So when we talk about these incremental increases, this really works out to be some big ticket item for the agencies that have to pay it. And when you start to think about reimbursement of $430 from Medicaid, regardless of what your ambulance bill is, you can send a $1,500 ambulance bill out the door.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned, upwards of 70% of our call volume is either Medicare and Medicaid. We don't even want to get into the obscene amounts of Medicaid reimbursement, which could be $153. Some people in some states now have gone and they've really increased the Medicaid reimbursement. But when you start to think about all you're getting for an ambulance bill in return is $430, $427 actually, I think it is. And you just times that by the number of runs. And then if your paperwork isn't right, if you're not documenting correctly, if you're not being able to bill that because the chart is horrible, all those make a big difference. And, the problems with EMS is that we rely on CMS to fund our systems with ambulance calls. And that's what brings us to a lot of the challenges that we have. We take people to the hospital that don't need to go. Why? So we can get $427 in reimbursement that we really need because we've budgeted that run in the system.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of challenge.
That Medicaid patient repeatedly for $150,
whatever,
because we haven't thought of a better solution.
Well, let's go ahead. Let's do this, Kelly. You did bring up the agency in Alabama. Let's go ahead and talk about them next. Let's go ahead and take a quick break. And when we come back, we will discuss how another one bites the dust, right? Yeah. We're hearing about all these EMS agencies that are closing, and we'll talk about the next one after the break. Here we go. Pulsera scales to meet your dynamic communication needs. From routine patient alerts to managing large-scale emergencies, every responder and clinician connect seamlessly. Familiar yet powerful, Pulsera streamlines your response from routine transfers to regional disasters. It's one tool every day, regardless of the event. Discover more at Pulsera.com. We are back on the other side of our break. Thank you very much for staying with us. Like you really had a choice. I mean, what were you going to do? You wanted to hear the rest of this conversation, right? So, Kelly, you did bring up another story, and this one was on the 4th, again on EMS one. We'll put these both articles in the show notes. Alabama County ends service. I'm sorry, Alabama County ambulance service ends operations. Pickens County ambulance service was down to just one rig in October due to lack of funding. We are seeing this more and more all over EMS. Go ahead and set this up for the listeners.
Well, it's the continuous battle that rural EMS is the pressures rural EMS is under. You see this not only reflected in ambulance shutdowns, but we're losing so many hospitals and these critical access hospitals and these rural hospitals that's putting even those closing puts even more pressure on these small rural ambulance services because now their typical transport is many more miles and putting that unit out of service or unavailable for a much longer period of time. And Pickens County is just one of those. And I think the county fathers there are finally figuring out, hey, you don't know what you got until it's gone. Christmas 2023, because they only ran one ambulance because they couldn't afford to run others. A man waited over an hour for the only ambulance in the county and died because of it. Well, or died. We don't know if it was
that. Yeah, we
because
don't
of
know that
that.
they
But
died because
and
of that.
press reports tend to play it that way, but we don't know why the poor man died. But no one should have to wait over an hour for an ambulance. But the sad thing is in funding and in oversight and this sort of thing, nothing usually happens in these situations until someone dies or something really, really bad happens and it gains public attention. And in this case, you know, Pickens County has shut down their service, and now they're looking at reopening or establishing another ambulance service through the Pickens County Commission office. And meanwhile, the surrounding counties have kind of stepped in a little bit to fill the gap. Lamar County placed a unit in a nearby town to help those residents. So often you see, you know, and people in the United States, we're taxed out of our minds, but we're honestly not taxed near to the extent we would be in, say, Europe. Pick a European country and look at how much they're taxed. We complain about these taxes and these monies coming out of our paycheck. And when we, as EMS professionals, advocate, we need a 1.2 mil tax, and the average John Q. citizen, you know, looking at that on the ballot goes, what the heck do they need $1.2 million for? They charge me $1,500 to take me 0.5 miles. They don't get that. We do a really poor job as a profession at selling what it is we're supposed to do. Nancy puts this as the gallon of milk theory, and she has used this successfully to convince governmental entities to restore funding or increase funding to volunteer services. So look, you break this tax millage down by the number of households in this that are going to be taxed this, and it works out to a gallon of milk a week. Would you not pay for a gallon of milk a week to have reliable, prompt ambulance service staff with caring and highly trained professionals? Most reasonable people would do that, but they don't look at it. They look at it in that big picture and go, God, how do these people, why do they need X number of $1 million a year? That ambulance hardly ever runs. And they do not understand the cost of readiness. I think Pickens County is about to find out in a very ugly way what the cost of readiness is when they try to stand up an ambulance service to replace the one that just shut down and discover how much it actually costs.
Yeah, when you think about that, you know, you talk about the cost of readiness, and this is something that we always have to teach the communities that we work in. You pay us to sleep, you pay us to sit on the couch, you pay us to read the newspaper because we wait and we are there when the balloon goes up that we have to be able to respond. And of course, we want to be able to have good fiduciary responsibility that we're just not sleeping all day. We've got chores, we've got assignments, we've got things that we have to do inside those stations. But we have to be able that at 2 o'clock in the morning in the pouring rain, that we are now on a highway taking care of somebody who's been in an accident and fighting the golden hour to save their lives. That's what you're paying for. And hopefully we never have to run on anybody, but it is the cost of readiness that people have to be ready for. You know, that gallon of milk thing, I've been thinking about it while you were talking, so I wasn't really paying attention to what you were saying.
Of
And I was
course.
just trying,
Now,
you know,
why
I
should
was like,
today be any different?
you lost me at hello. But you know, we think about that, a gallon of milk a week per house, that's six, like, what do you pay for a gallon of milk? Like $4?
Yeah, something like
Yeah.
that.
So $4 per house. Is that really what it comes down to? Is it $4 per week per house?
Something like that.
So $16, because usually it's based on the homeowners. So
Property tax value.
they tax it based on your home, and they add another X percentage per $1,000 of your home. So if
Yeah.
you live in $1,000 home, you're getting 1% on that thousand, or every thousand thereafter. I think it's got to be more than that, man. I mean, she may
It,
be right, but I never put pen to paper to figure that out.
well, and the thing is so much of this, I mean, you hear, oh, my property taxes are going to go up. When you break down the percentage, it's a matter of a few $100s a year at most. I think Nancy and I were talking about this the other day about increasing property taxes and for one of the agencies she consults for, and no one had broken down the math. Look, if you have a $250,000 to $300,000 home, it's going to cost you $400 more a year. You can't afford $400 more a year.
That's more than a gallon of milk, though.
No. But that what I'm saying is even the people that are taxed with the most expensive homes, only $300 or $400 a year, and the people with smaller
Some people don't
homes,
have three or
it's
four hundred dollars though. So yeah,
But the thing is people do not understand the cost of readiness. We go back to this time and time again,
yeah.
but no one has ever bothered to put that in understandable terms for Susie Soccer Mom and John Q. Public. They do not understand this. And actually, you ask most people, they don't have any clue of how ambulance service or EMS service is provided. Well, aren't you a member of the fire? Aren't you the fire department? No, not necessarily. And the fire department uses us to subsidize their other stuff that doesn't pay. So they really have no clue as to the expense of what it is and actually how cost efficient it is. But we have so many more ways that over the years, the forward thinking agencies have figured out how to diversify their funding streams and be more efficient with mobile integrated health programs and partnering with their hospitals and their health systems to reduce some of their costs. I don't know what the solution is as far as funding ambulance service, but I do know that many agencies, when pressed, or not agencies, governmental bodies, when pressed, have somehow magically found a way to fund it. And as far as the folks in Dougherty County said, they lost 18 people in a year with a combined 90 years of experience in EMS, left for greener pastures simply because of the pay. I have found in my career that you can pay people well and treat them poorly, and they'll stay because they're making a good paycheck. Or you can pay them poorly but treat them extremely well, and they'll stay because they're part of that family. But you can't pay them poorly and treat them poorly. And with the tempo that many EMS systems have to run at today, I don't know if you can treat them well enough to make up for substandard pay. I know that in the poorest county in New York, in the most rural and geographically large and poorest county in New York, I'm making twice at a base rate what the guys in Dougherty County are making after their pay raise. It's places can't afford it. This question is, will they afford it? Will they try?
Yeah. Well, that's a good place to end, man. Let's go ahead and do it and get out of here.
Yeah. Do you have to work three jobs to make ends meet as an EMS provider? If so, why? Is there some place where you can go where they value your services and do so with a paycheck instead of just job satisfaction? We'd like to hear what you think, what your agencies do to treat you well, to pay you better. Give us your thoughts at the show at ems1.com. And for myself and co-host Chris Cebollero, thanks for tuning in to Inside EMS. Gonna catch you guys next week.